Hello.
Hi. And everyone,
How are ya?
good. Hopefully everyone can hear us this time.
Yes, hopefully. All right. So today I've got Tammy Farmer from Country Financial with me. So Tammy, if you want to just take a few minutes and give us a little background, how long you've been in the business, how did you get in the business, and what do you like most about your job?
Okay. I said 26 years. It's been so long. It's been like 26, 29. After 20, you stop counting. So I started in insurance in high school. I started as a file clerk in California. And then I just always stayed with it. I've done airplane insurance. I've done different types of insurance. So the reason I love the insurance industry is because I love helping people. So I'm a people person, and insurance is all about people.
Yes.
So
I'm gonna adjust my camera a little bit.
I know I tried to put my phone up so I wasn't like in your face.
All right. All right. So let's talk. What kind of insurance products do you offer?
Okay, so we offer auto, home, life, small business. We do farms.
Okay.
We also, Country does offer retirement.
Okay.
So we have a wide variety of products. We mainly focus on small business, small core families, just individuals. We're not interested in the big million dollar companies. Not that that's bad. That's just not what Country,
Right.
what we insure. You know, we started in Georgia. People always call us Countrywide. We're not Countrywide. That was
a mortgage company
that went belly up. That's not us. Country Financial. We purchased Cotton States.
Okay.
So we're expanding. Our home office is in Bloomington, Illinois, right next door to State Farm.
Nice.
Been around just as long as State Farm has. One thing with Country is you won't see advertisements on TV. You won't see, celebrities and stuff like that. They really pour into us agents, which I appreciate. For us to be able to get into the community and give back. We have a lot of programs, Helping Heroes. We support single moms. There's a lot of things that we do that I just love. So
Awesome. All right, well, let's start with home insurance. Since I'm a realtor, that's probably the one that I deal with the most. So let's talk about, if I come to you and I go, Tammy, I'm buying a new house. Maybe it's a first time home. Maybe I'm upgrading, getting something a little bit bigger. How much coverage do I need?
So that's a great question, right? Because in today's economy, everybody wants bare bones minimum, get me that lowest price. I can't tell you how many lenders I've talked to that it would come down to the insurance if the person could qualify for the house.
Right.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, maybe we better rethink some things, but that's not for me to say. So, because insurance is going to be expensive. Your clients need to remember a home is the biggest investment you'll make for most of us. So we have to make sure it's insured properly. So I would start asking questions. I would ask, the purchase price, the finance amount. And the reason I ask those questions is because if the valuation that I come up with doesn't equal that loan amount, I know the lender has to have loan amount. So, if you get in a situation where you're buying an overpriced house, that can get tricky because we have to cover the loan, but then there's notes in there. I go through the whole house. We go through, the dimensions, square footage, the customizations. I type in my little numbers, and some people don't like it because if they say they purchase a $300,000 house, they're usually putting 20% down. So they're financing 240, 260. that's what they want to pay.
Right.
But if I come back and I'm like, well, the replacement cost in your home is actually $325, they don't understand. So
Right.
I say it's really important to make sure you have a replacement cost policy in place for your home. And remember, I know people send appraisals. They're really happy when the appraisal comes back big. And then I have some people like 500,000. That's what I want my home insured. And I'm looking, I'm like, well, your land's worth 125. So we're going to back that out because we're not going to insure your land, right?
Right.
So there's so many things that go into it. So I would just, and I know you tell your clients, just be careful. Make sure you're insuring.
Right.
You're going to be paying that home mostly for 30 years, right?
Right. Well, and so along those lines too, how do you determine what coverage is necessary or beneficial for the client? Is it, this is what we offer, this is what we insure, these are our premiums, this is what it's going to cover? Is it the same for everybody, or is the coverage determined based on the home, the individuality of the home?
So the coverage and the premium is based on the home and the client.
Okay.
It's based on the area. Downtown Atlanta premium is going to be different than rural Monroe, Georgia. Right. So it's going to, if I have a client, you have a lot of claims, and a client that doesn't, that's going to play a factor. And it's not just country, it's everybody. Right. So everybody does snapshots of credit. They look at the loss history. So there's a lot of factors that go into the premium.
Right. Okay.
So it's not, you can't just call me up and I'll be like, it's $500.
Right. Here's your coverage, and here's what's, yeah. So one thing that you and I had talked about, and really what brought me to you originally, I had put on Facebook that I needed recommendations because I was given a letter a month before my insurance premiums were due last year that the company I was with, whatever, was no longer allowed to insure. Whatever had happened to them, they were canceling my policy. They were no longer able to provide insurance. I don't know if they had lost their licensing or what had happened. And I was to find a new insurance company, or the mortgage company would appoint me one. And so I put out on Facebook, I had a letter that had come from an Allstate agent. I didn't know who he was, never met him, just had a letter. I called him, I called some other people. And we've known each other from church. Mm-hmm. So when they gave me your number and the fact that you were right around the corner from me, that was a big deal. But basically our house is like a custom built home. It's built in '83. It is very unique in all of the structure and everything. And we knew when that letter came in with the fact that the home prices, like just what our home, the estimated value was from 3 years ago. So I think we were right at the 4-year mark at that point, from what we had paid 4 years ago to this point last year, had doubled, honestly, what we had paid for it to what it was worth now. And we were not insured for enough. I had looked at one of the policy documents that had come over, and I think it was either 417 or 470 is what we were insured for. And I looked at my husband and I was like, if this house burns to the ground, we cannot rebuild it for $470,000. Just not going to happen, not with inflation and all of that. And so when we came to you originally, I had told you this, that I had gone to the Allstate guy and to a couple of other agents, and I had said, can I just get $1 million policy, just an umbrella blanket coverage? It's going to cover everything up to $1 million. And I had 2 agents write me $1 million policies, no questions asked. And so when we came to you, we came to your office here in town, and we sat down and we went over all of the different things with our home, any upgrades we had made, what was still original, the uniqueness of the house. And I think I'm pretty sure we doubled our coverage amount, because I think with you we're at least in the low 800s. I want to say we might even be closer to 900,000 in coverage. But the fact that you sat down with us and we laid out, like, you asked questions, we laid out all of the information that we could, to kind of, this is what sets our house apart. It's not a cookie cutter house. And if it burns down, I want to rebuild it to the best of my ability, the way that it is right now. And so that was just huge. In the fact that we sat down, we talked about it, and yeah, I'm not at $1 million, but I'm closer, and I feel at this point I am better insured. And that just got me thinking, the fact that some people have been in their houses for 20 years. Some of them built their house in the 70s, raised their families. They're still living in those houses. So since we have this inflation and the rising costs that we have right now, is it a good idea for somebody who has had maybe the same insurance coverage for the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years to do like a wellness check, to give their agent a call, to call you, to shop around and make sure that if in the event of a total loss, they're protected?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. At Country, and I'm only going to speak for Country, not other companies, we do insurance financial checkups. So before an annual renewal, we contact our clients to go over their homeowner's policy, because in my book of business, I have some agents' business that retired, and they are older, and they have been in their home, and they don't want to change the price of their house. I have houses, it's $120,000, and I'm like, you really can't rebuild that house for $120,000. So we go over it, and most of the time it's just like you said, if someone takes the time to show you why we need to change something, you're more apt to change it. And
Right.
so just a higher premium in the mail, so I would say definitely before your renewal, call your agent, go over the coverages. I've been known, like, sometimes houses are insured too high, and I'm like, we can knock this down. We have, this or this or that, or there's extra coverages, they really don't apply anymore. So agents aren't always out to try and tack on everything they can,
Right.
because we're consumers just like you. We don't get a discount on our insurance. We're paying the same premium as everybody. So I treat each customer like if it was me. If that was my property, I would want to make sure somebody was looking after me. That's what you pay me for.
Right. Exactly. Well, and like you said, it's, for most people, it's the single largest investment they're going to make. And I think on Wednesday we had talked about the fact that, um, you know, everybody's looking to cut costs right now. Everything is expensive, and you will have people who will cut their homeowners insurance. And I remember several years ago, there was a family, and I don't know if I knew them personally or if it was just a friend of a friend of a friend. But they were having a hard time, and they canceled their homeowners insurance. And about 3 weeks later, their house was hit by lightning.
Oh.
And it was a total loss, and they had no way to rebuild. And so, am I thrilled to pay for insurance that I may never use? No, it's not something fun. It's not like I go, yay, but it's a protection. One, it's the largest investment I'm going to make, and I want to know that I'm protected. If something happens to it, now hard times, just because inflation and everything, now those hard times become even harder because I have no home.
That's right.
I've lost
That's
everything. I mean, if it's a total loss, you have no clothes, you have no, you've lost the food that was in your pantry, you've lost everything. And so, just having that peace of mind and that protection. And then, like I told you, the thought of if my house were to burn down, to have to build something less than what I have right now. And it's not like I have anything grand, but I just have a lot of unique things. I've got floor to ceiling cedar panels that are one piece. Like, that's impossible these days. to find that, and that's part of the charm of the house. So I wouldn't want to just rebuild some cookie cutter easy peasy house. I would want to rebuild what I have. I fell in love with the house. That's why we purchased it. So you were saying Country actually goes through and does a wellness check every year for you, essentially. Is that normal with most carriers, or is that something that's unique to you guys?
I'm not sure if other carriers do it. I know Country does it. On the autos, it's before auto renewal. On the home, it's before the homeowner, renews. So I'm not quite sure. If your agent hasn't talked to you in years, I encourage you to reach out to them, and ask them to sit down with you and go over your coverages. And homeowner policies, like you said, that lady canceled her home. She must not have had a mortgage on it, but they're not maintenance policies, right?
Right.
Insurance in general is for catastrophes. Life, you could pay on life insurance and never use it. Praise the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with homeowners. So, think of it as protection of your investment, like you said, not a maintenance.
Right.
Do not call your agent to file some small claim. Right. That's not.
Right.
That's not.
Well, and then that leads me to the next question of, in the event that there is a loss, what's the process to get a payout?
Mm-hmm.
And what would people be surprised that homeowners insurance might not cover?
It goes back to, excuse me, your policy. This is why it's so important to know. I have seen policies like they want me to quote them. It's like apples and oranges. And I'm like, I'm not even going to be competitive. But you need to make sure your policy includes busted pipes is big in Georgia. The pipe freeze, bust, flood. You want to make sure that you have living expenses. Our policies include additional living expense. So if you have to move out of your home, we pay for that. We pay for you to stay in a hotel while your home is being done. As far as payout, and we talked about this last call, I'm just going to jump over to a renter. Mm-hmm. Renter insurance is so cheap. If you watch this call later and you're a renter, get insurance. The minimum amount we'll cover is $25,000 for your personal belongings, and it's not over $25 a month. It drives me crazy when I see people having on TV crying because they lost everything. And I'm like, why didn't you have renters? Just don't go out to eat and pay for it. But right. So if you have a loss, Country, we will cut you a check. So if someone loses everything and I see people panicking, what is my friend going to do? Your friend, if the policy's, a good policy, could call their agent and they'll get supplement checks.
Yeah.
So, Johnny needs clothes,
Yeah.
we need clothes or such have. So, so once the process goes on, just keep in mind though, the replacement cost comes into fact when it's done. Mm-hmm. So when everything is completed, you get back the depreciation that's withheld. Okay. Have a replacement cost policy. This changed years ago. I don't know if you remember the roofing situation. Mm-hmm. Got out of control with these roofers coming from out of state, checks being cut, roofers taking checks, clients had no roof. Yep. So, or vice versa, you write a check, client spends it on bills or right. So now companies, if you have a replacement cost policy, they will pay in full. It's just you have to wait to that bottom line till everything's done.
Okay. So yeah, what would we be surprised that insurance wouldn't cover?
People would be surprised that does not cover vermin, squirrels, getting in your attic, chewing up your wires, costing thousands of dollars. Does not cover termites. Okay. It does not cover earthquake. You can add that endorsement. Once again, I'm speaking for Country, but in general, I've worked for other large companies. It's the same thing. Flood insurance, rainwater. If we have like it's Noah built the ark. If that kind of situation happens into our house, you would have to have a flood policy.
Okay.
Normally, and you know, because you're a realtor, if you sell a house by water, they're going to have flood insurance anyhow.
Yes.
Some people, though, maybe the floodplain changed while they were in their house.
Mhm.
When they didn't get flood insurance, it's still not covered. If you have a lake, you know, that overflows into your home, it doesn't matter who you're insured with. It all goes through FEMA.
Okay.
So it may have a different carrier name on it, but it goes through the government. So
Right.
those are the,
And you can check FEMA, the FEMA.com or whatever it is. You can check to see if your address is in a flood zone. I've been on the website a few times. There are other ways to check too. So if you have a realtor and you're curious if your property falls in a floodplain, you can always contact them. And then of course I'm always here too. I can run those checks. So when we're talking flood, are we talking like rainfall flood or the busted pipe flood?
so the busted pipe flood is covered.
Okay.
If frozen pipe that just bust, it's covered. I have the most, I mean, I've had several claims this year with last December of frozen pipes.
Mhm.
It caused a lot of damage.
Yes.
I have a client that's up to like $78,000. I had a client 2 years ago, it was $125,000 because her dishwasher pipe broke. And
Okay.
so that type of coverage is covered. The damage is covered. However, we won't fix the pipe. Okay, so you're gonna have to get a plumber. You know, you're gonna have to pay for that. The septic, like my daughter had a claim, she had to replace her septic tank.
Mhm.
You know, we did the resulting damage, but we're not gonna replace that tank.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
A lot of people are like, "What do you mean?" Like, we're not maintenance, right? We're not
right.
We're covering the resulting damage.
Right. So kind of switching gears over to auto insurance. When we're talking about being a homeowner, it is wealth that you do have. You're building wealth as a homeowner. So when we're talking about having an auto policy along with homeowners insurance, one, obviously most insurance companies are offering a multi discount if you're doing, you know, home, auto, life, several auto policies, whatever. So if you want to talk a few minutes about that. Also, when we're talking about like state minimums, because again, do I love paying out a crazy amount of money for car insurance that I may not need? No, not really. But again, do I want to pay for those repairs out of pocket? No, I don't want to do that either.
Right.
So if you could kind of go for just a second or two about state minimums versus being properly insured. And then how, I know because I've had this conversation with your husband, if you are not properly insured and you cause, I mean, used to it would be if you caused like a 4-car pileup, but nowadays cars are so stinking expensive that if you hit just one car, you might not be properly insured and that person could come after you and take your home. So if you could just kind of talk for a few minutes about state minimums versus being properly insured, and what happens if you just have the state minimums and you don't have enough money to cover the cars that you've hit.
Right. You know, this is my favorite topic. And once again, you know, people shop around, and if you come to me and your policy shows state minimum, I'm not going to be competitive, but I will educate you. So Georgia, each state has different minimums. Georgia's state minimum, it actually years ago when I first started in the industry, you only had to carry 15,000 per person. I know, 30,000 max and 15,000 for the car. So that tells you how times have changed. I wish they would increase that. So today, if everyone, you know, later tonight when you're bored on a Friday night, take out your insurance paper and look at your declaration page. And the liability, there's 3 numbers. The first number is if you have minimum coverage, says 25,000. Okay, that's 25,000 bodily injury. If you're in an at-fault accident, your company will pay out 25,000 per person. The second number is 50. The maximum it'll pay out is 50,000 for bodily injury. That third number is property damage, 25,000. So I can tell you, because my son-in-law sells cars, good luck trying to find a $25,000 car.
Right.
So let's say I'm driving along, you're driving your $80,000 car. I rear end you really bad, you know, and I have state minimum. And let's say your car's totaled. So you call my insurance company, you know, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, Grace, like, you know, she has $25,000. And you're like, yeah, but my payoff is 80. Okay, well, I'm sorry. You have to go back to your company and see if they can help you. Okay, so then you'd have to turn to your insurance. Your insurance will probably pay out depending on your coverage. You may not even have enough coverage, right? So that insurance company is going to recoup, trust me. The client, you, if you are not made whole, you will hire an attorney, right? And you will be contacting me. And so I've seen it before. People say, yeah, but I don't have a house. I don't own anything. You know, I can carry just a state minimum. I just want to get my, well, they can garnish your paycheck. Right? So, I mean, they can get their money.
Yeah.
And so another factor is, you mentioned the home. They can attach a lien to your house, you know? So I've seen, and it depends, like insurance is worst case scenario.
Right.
So let's just say, that's just if you damage a vehicle. Let's say someone dies. That opens up a whole nother thing, or someone's seriously injured and they're in the hospital. I don't know about you, but I've gotten hospital bills, just like something little, right? And it's expensive. So you get sued, you know, they could take, just like you said, you don't have a mortgage on your house. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
You do now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, and I think that's like, honestly, like a pretty scary thought, is that if you are running around with state minimums, like you could be, and I like how you even said, like, I might not, the person you hit might not even be covered enough.
Right.
And to replace their $80,000 car. And I think back to, you know, last year I had to call you and I was like, dude, this kid just rear-ended me. And of course, like, first thing out of his mouth is, don't call the cops, I'll give you $100. I'm like, no. And he's like, but look at your car, you have a steel bumper. Look at my car has more damage. And I'm like, but you bent my steel bumper.
Right.
So no, you're not just going to give me $100 and be done with it. And when all was said and done, I ended up having to file uninsured motorists because he was 16 driving on a permit without an adult in the car. And then his insurance wanted to say that because he wasn't on the policy, they weren't going to cover the damage to my car. And I was on my own.
Yep.
And thankfully, I think the total for mine was only about like $2,100. A new bumper, and you know, they did a couple things to the body of the car where it had gotten a little messed up. But like, that was, to me, that was one of the most frustrating things I think I've ever had to deal with, because one, he had state minimums, and two, he wasn't even on the policy. And so their insurance was like, he's not on the policy, we're not paying out.
Yeah.
So I know Country is taking care of that side of things, and I was able to get my car fixed and move on. But it's just like, I'm totally in agreement. I think that the state itself needs to raise those minimums, because one, inflation, and two, the car that I have right now is a 2017. I could sell it for exactly what I paid for it in 2017.
Right.
And if I want to go replace it with a brand new one, it's going to be double what I paid for it in 2017, if not more. Oh, and that brings me another one. A friend of mine got their van got totaled, and the insurance paid out, and they ended up, because they had a loan on the car. So the loan got paid off, and then I assume they were able to take whatever was left over to go buy the new car to replace it, but they ended up paying more monthly because they bought a car like 4 years ago and the inflation rate. So he's like, my monthly payment is now $200 more than it was on this other vehicle.
Because
And I was like, that's something I really hadn't ever thought of, is you just sort of assume somebody totals out my car, they're cutting me a check for it. My car's almost paid off, so I don't think that would be a huge issue, but I don't know that I would get the new car value. I would probably get whatever the car is worth, is what I'm assuming. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of issues there with people just getting those state minimums and not understanding what that means.
I think that's the biggest thing, is when I talk to new clients, they don't understand the coverage they have, and the agent never went over it with them. They just wanted the sale or go online. You know, I will say 9 times out of 10 though, it's an agent that they told they wanted the cheapest, that's what they got.
Right.
You know, and
instead of educating, and I find that even in my industry, is that when you don't educate people, they don't know what they don't know. And I don't sell insurance. I don't get into accidents every single day. I don't know the ins and outs
just like
of all of that.
I wouldn't know what to tell someone,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And so, like, my job as a realtor is to educate you on the process, not just willy-nilly, this is what you ask for, this is what I'm going to give you. Like, my job is to educate you and teach you about what's going on in my industry and help you make the best decisions. And that's the same with I think with anybody really, but especially, you know, when you have people who are going out there and y'all are quoting them against a, you know, state minimum policy. And I appreciate the fact that whenever I've sent you a client like that, you explain to them, I'm not going to be competitive,
Right.
because what you have right now is not even, it's not protection, you know.
8 times out of 10, the person will go with what they've been told, you know, because we do take the time, but there are some situations that the client's just like, okay, and they go get something cheaper,
Right.
you know. And I'm glad you're doing this call, because it's just, I don't care what company you have, it's just about educating,
Right.
and having people understand what they're paying for.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, a lot of people don't even know.
Well, so back to the coverages and state minimums and all that. What do you recommend based on what it costs to buy a new car these days? What are coverage amounts that you recommend to your clients?
I recommend right off the bat, I say a normal client comes in $100,000 per person, $300,000 maximum, and $100,000 for any car that you hit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm speaking, that's to the client that tells me, I don't have much, I just have my home, home. Now, if a client comes in and they have several rental properties, they have, the umbrella pot, they have things, then we talk about 250, 500, 250, because it does depend, like we talked about the home, it depends on the client. But
right.
The minimum coverage I would say you need to have is the 100, the 300, the 100.
So in the event that I am the reason behind it, like I'm at fault for a multi-car accident, do you pay off to the first car that I hit, and then to the second, and then to the third, and so forth until I run out of money? Or does everybody get paid out evenly regardless of where they were in the chain of events?
Right. No, it does not get paid out evenly.
Okay.
So I have, and I've had several clients, they've been in those accidents. And I'm like, you need to get me a letter from the company stating there's no money, because that way then, just like your situation, we have to go to their uninsured motorist. Okay. So the company is not going to say, oh, there's 4 cars. Let's say you have 25,000 minimum. So you each get like 5,000 something a piece. That's not how it works. The first car is probably going to eat up all the money.
Right.
So there's nothing left, right? So you do turn to your uninsured motorist, but then again, don't think, oh, I have uninsured motorist, so I'm fine, because we're talking just a minimal accident here,
Right.
Like yours was minimal, so it's not a big pay. But it's frustrating because you still had to pay a $250 deductible, right? State.
I think mine was $500. Yeah, we went with the higher deductible just so our premiums would be a little cheaper.
The state standard is $250. So most times people have $250, but if times are hard and people have state minimum, $250 is hard to come up with, right? So I just say just protect, and don't listen. There's talk shows out there that say you don't need this, you don't need that. Okay.
Well, and something we didn't get into last time was the ambulance chasers.
Yes.
And so, you might get hit, I might hit somebody and not even give a second thought to that and be like, well, I'm properly covered. I have, or at least I think I am. I don't really understand it, but I think I'm properly covered. And next thing I know, I've got, Ted Nugent on my case,
Oh.
Right.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, we live in a sue happy world, anybody's looking to make money off, anybody and get the money that they want or they need or, makes them happy. And, I've seen a lot of instances, where you just kind of go, and honestly, I guess what I want to say is, at one point years ago, when things were a lot cheaper, we had the 25, 50, 25. And honestly, because I wasn't ever really educated on that, I just assumed I have insurance, they pay out.
Right.
They'll take care, not that I drove around recklessly for that matter, but I just sort of assumed, like I have homeowners insurance. If my house burns to the ground, you guys are going to help me rebuild a new one. Yeah, but it might not be exactly like the one I have if I don't have the right coverage. And so the same thing with the cars is you might be driving around going, well, I have insurance. I assume it's going to pay out, but knowing what those not premiums, but what your coverages are and how it would pay out, because you have, a multi-car accident, and you could be looking at not just one person suing you, but 2 or 3, depending on how many you've hit and where it stopped paying out.
Yes, so we've had really bad, some of these bad accidents on 316 years ago, car flipped, someone died. It was actually one of my clients, and I am so glad we sat down and had the discussion about properly, being covered. So yeah, it's not a maintenance policy. It's a catastrophe policy. If everyone thinks of it that way, and to the fact to your point of saying about sue happy, one of the reasons Georgia's rates are the way they are is because we are the highest state for being sued.
And I was going to ask you that.
Yes, because country in itself did a research, and with every, say, 10 claims, there's going to be an attorney involved. So, I just had a claim last week. Barely, someone sent me, young kid, works hard, barely hit a car, his car, no damage. The lady has severe neck pains, and, and I'm just like trying to calm the kid down because he did the right, has good coverage. He's a hardworking young man. And I'm just like, get mad because I'm like, but I just have to say, don't worry. Because one thing, when you're paying for insurance, you're paying for me, you're paying for the adjuster, you're paying for attorneys. So it's not just coverage, like you have legal representation also, so if you take all those things in consideration, it's not bad.
No, and that was going to be one of my questions too, is in the state of Georgia, maybe nationwide, but at least in the state of Georgia, do you think if our state minimums were to be like the mandate on those were to increase substantially to the minimum is this coverage now, at least the 100,000 or maybe even 150, do you suppose those lawsuits would diminish a little bit? Do you suppose that there would be, if people were more properly insured, would the premiums be as high as they are? Because I'm sure premiums have to increase when
Right.
you're paying for attorneys and you're going through and you're paying out for all this stuff. Like it hurts everybody.
Right.
So do you think that if the state as a whole said, hey, we're going to make minimum coverages 100 or 150,000 minimum, that we would see a decline in some of those lawsuits?
I feel like we would see a decline because people would be properly insured. So there'd be no reason for somebody to have to hire an attorney because the coverage would be there.
Right.
You will always have your scammers and that's always going to be there. But there are innocent people that just want to be made whole.
Right.
You get attorneys and they should get an attorney.
Right.
And to speak to that, just know like your insurance company has attorneys to represent you. So I never really understand why people go outside,
Well, I didn't realize that until we did our call on Wednesday.
Yeah.
That there would be attorneys that would be provided through the insurance company.
Right.
So I think again, it's education, because if you don't know these things, then you go, well, and then of course you got the ambulance chaser. So as soon as I'm in an accident, they're following me. Hey, did you know you could sue these people? And I would say, I think too, that's a whole nother conversation, but that doesn't help the situation, because somebody who maybe wasn't headed down that path, now
Right.
you've put it in their ear, you've made that little plug, and now they're going, oh, well, I could get money for this, so yeah, I'm going to go after these people. And I do, like, we try to instill with our kids that one wrong choice can lead to a lifetime of frustration.
Yes.
And especially because you don't know who's out there on the road. You don't know what kind of coverage they have. And so I think it's very important, and I'm sure the kid that hit me, I'm sure the reason was that if she put him on the insurance, it was going to jump up. Well, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
That's the price you pay. So, but let's switch over to life insurance just for a few minutes. And so, all of this, we're talking about being properly insured, protecting your assets, protecting your investments. You said you offer life insurance. So, do you see that people just are insured but don't have enough coverage? Do you think that there's a lack of insured people? And then what do you say would be a good amount to be insured for so that your family could be protected properly?
Right. That's such all great questions. And then again, what I see is a lot of people don't have life insurance. And the reason they don't have it, or they have it, but they'll tell me they have it through their job. And that is that's amazing. If you work for a company that provides you insurance, that's a plus. If you ever leave your job, the insurance doesn't come with you, right? So I always say, I don't care who you're with, get life insurance on your own. You have to have it on your own. So I don't know about you. Well, I do know you, but whoever wants later, my family is more important than my house. So if we're gonna have the best coverage on our house and our cars, then why aren't we insuring us for our family? And so, Country, we offer so many different plans according to where you are in life. If you're a young couple buying a house, I get it. You're like, all these, right? But like you said, if something happens and you're struggling now, if something happens to the main breadwinner, you're going to lose everything. And so husband and wives, the wife is just as important, that stay-at-home mom. sorry guys, she works harder than you do. She has all these jobs that you would have to hire someone to do.
Yep.
So, everybody should be covered, including children, because your child could develop some health issue down the road and they're not insurable. So when they have a family, they can't get insurance, but as a parent or a grandparent, if you get that life insurance, it's like a gift for them, to take on. So I would say, starting off, normally when I'm talking to a client, we just talk term insurance. So really quickly, the difference between term and permanent is like owning and renting, right? So a term is like renting that life policy because it's going to have a term where it ends. Permanent policy, that is like a home, you will own at the end. So those are the two differences. Builds cash value, provides the term just provides like a renter, like what you need for right now. So I encourage everyone, if you're struggling or you don't have any, go with the term. They're great policies. Our company, Country, we have like riders included in our term policies. If you become like, let's say life, you get diagnosed with, you're going to pass away in 2 years or what have you, you can take, Country will cut a check for that life insurance so you can enjoy life with your family. Never seen that before. That's awesome. Terminus. Awesome. I was like, what's that called? Terminal illness rider. So there's so many things, but as far as coverage wise, just like insurance, it depends on the person. We usually say you need 10 times your income. If you have a home that's worth $400,000, well, there you go. You better have at least $400,000 for your spouse or, to pay off, and plus your income, right? I don't know, but if your spouse passes away, do you want them to have to go get a job right away?
Right.
There's so many factors in it. So life insurance, and also a Country, it does give you another discount, but it's cheap, especially when you're younger. Get a term policy when you're younger, and later we'll talk about converting it to build some cash for you. So get with your agent, whoever you have, or you can call me. Just sit down and financially protect those you love. Right.
Which I think honestly is really the reason for all of the insurance types out there, is just protecting. It's protection. Like, I hope I never have to use it, but if I do, it's there. And then being educated to make sure that I know, like I said, when we pulled our policy, and I was like, we're only insured for $470,000. If this house burns down, we can't build it back. And I don't even know if that would cover all the items inside, or if that would just cover a structural. Like, are there differences?
So it depends on who you're insured with. Like you're covered for your home, and there's a different amount for your personal property. There's a different amount for that wall that's out there. That's auxiliary, your sheds, stuff like that. Yeah. So it's all
just looking at that, going like, we are definitely underinsured on this house. We need to talk to somebody about that. And I did get a message from my mortgage company saying that they didn't have enough in my escrow, which I knew was coming because we doubled our insurance coverage. So
it happened to me too. On my escrow, I'm like, okay, I'm short. Should we spread it out, or should we? But
no, and we knew it was coming, so I was like, it is what it is, but I'd rather have the peace of mind knowing that we're properly protected.
Yes, and have a company that you can walk in the door.
Yes.
Especially like with life insurance. I'll have people saying, I got it, and I was like, that is so good, and I'm putting notes in your file. Who do you have it with? As long as you're covered, who do you have it with? And it's someone I've never even heard of. And it'll be a large amount they have. And I'm like, did you do health questions or exams? And they're like, no. That's a red flag. So you're going to get what you pay for. Make sure your company is financially stable. I prefer to walk into someone's office.
Right.
So my know if we were to pass away, well, they know, you know, to go to my manager, and they know exactly where everything is. You know, I have elderly clients that have life insurance. You know, I've gotten to know them. They know their daughter, their son can walk into my office and we'll take care of them.
Yeah.
And to me, that's,
and I think that's always been one of my things in my realm of the world. You have the big box companies, and then you have your local lenders. And I always say you're way better off going with a local lender. They know the area, and if there's an issue, you can walk into their office. If I'm using Quicken Loans and my agent is based in Texas, I can't just walk into their office.
Right.
It's not convenient.
right.
So I'm always a big fan of choose somebody local that you can walk into their office if you need to.
I agree. I agree. I don't want my family calling an 800 number,
No.
trying to figure out how are we going to pay for this, that, or whatever.
Right.
I agree.
Well, and then just being a number, and you know, on some level, anything you do, you are a number. But when the local people are the ones that make you feel more than just a number, where, like we talked at the beginning, people who are just signing people up, this is what coverage you want, here you go, here's your policy, and not taking the time to get to know their needs or their situation. And I think you have a lot of those even still today. You call the 1-800 number, here we shopped around, here's some rates for you, you sign up, and you don't even know what you've gotten.
I've lost clients, you know. I can show you email after email. They say it's like they love me and they're, you know, and I've gotten to know them, and it's just like, you know, I always say, you know, do what you feel best.
Mhm.
You know, I'm always here.
Yeah.
And so, and some clients have come back,
Yeah.
but yes, I agree. I want to know your face. I want to know your family, and it's awesome when you're walking around town.
Yes.
I insure that business.
Yep.
You know, I always go see my little business owners and, you know, try and help promote them, and just clients. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. I think just want to thank you for taking the time today to do this with me. Again, since we had our little technical difficulty
Sorry.
on Wednesday, but no, anybody out there who is curious to know more, to get some education on what your policy has, what it doesn't cover, what you should be covered for, feel free to reach out to Tammy. She's with Country Financial out of Monroe. But I'm sure she can service pretty much anywhere in the greater Atlanta area.
Yeah.
She's not just stuck in Monroe, but
Yeah.
reach out to her. We'll put her information at the bottom in the comments later on this afternoon. And so again, I just thank you for being on with me and taking the time to share your knowledge and to help educate my listeners.
Thank you. And everybody, this Friday night, get your policies out.
Have a policy party. All right. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.